Welcome to Bed and Butter, the hospitality podcast, designed exclusively for budding students and aspiring industry leaders. We're thrilled to embark on this exciting journey with you. Each episode, we'll delve into the heart of hospitality industry with your host, Sean Riley, uncovering invaluable insights, trends, and strategies to not only succeed, but thrive in this dynamic field. The podcast is produced in collaboration with Southern Maine Community College. Listen to national leaders highlight opportunities for the active hospitality professional, students of SMCC's Culinary Arts program, as well as the L. Joe Van Wy School of Hospitality. This program is a labor of love, made possible with the help of the Communications and New Media Studies students. Whether you're sharpening your skills or stepping into the world of hospitality for the first time, Bed and Butter is your go-to resource. So let's dive in and spread the knowledge, one episode at a time.
I'd like to introduce the first of our three guests on today's episode. Please welcome Sophie Bergendahl, a student at SMCC in South Portland, Maine. She found the school's free tuition program a real motivator to go there. Hey, Sophie, how are you today?
Good. How are you doing today?
Good. Welcome to Bed and Butter, the hospitality
Thank you.
podcast. Thanks. Well, it is exciting. So you're a student of SMCC and at Southern Maine Community College in South Portland, Maine. And, I go down there often. I can't imagine trying to sit in class and look out those window at that beautiful ocean.
It is hard. It is definitely hard.
Yeah, I mean, it really is neat. So what is your major?
So I'm a hospitality management major at SMCC.
Okay, great. Now, I know you have a lot of experience in our discussions that we've had, maybe not as much as somebody who's been in the business 40 years like me or some of our other guests who've been 20 or 30 years or 10 years. But with that, a lot of our guests might like to know how someone like you decided to go into our industry. I probably can't remember back that far. But for you, how did you do that? What did you decide?
Yeah, I just really love working with people. I do have a little bit of experience in a couple different realms of hospitality. And I really love working with people, being a part of experiences and just all of that for sure.
Wow, that's great. And I think, so, we had some time to chat and you mentioned, we'll talk about your career and what you've done so far, and why did you choose SMCC besides the view and the beautiful fresh air? What in the programs or what did you have that made you choose that?
Yeah, well, the view definitely helps, but the free college program of SMCC was that was the nail on the coffin. That really was what swayed me into it. But SMCC also has an on-campus inn that they run called the McLernan Center, and that was a super, super big draw. I'd never really heard of anything like that before, and even just seeing the hospitality program being a part of the school, I wasn't really aware that was even an option even a year ago. I wasn't aware that was something I could get into and was an actual major at schools.
Wow. Well, that's great. I think that is a cool program, that the hospitality center. We actually had a function here just last fall. It was a wedding reception and it was great. And it is right on the water. I mean,
People love it.
Small little inn. It was wonderful. So you've worked in the industry, you said. What kind of places and at what capacity? When you're not long explanations, but little pieces. I know the first one you said I thought was amazing. I never thought of that as hospitality, but tell us about that first one and then a little bit about these other jobs.
Yeah. So I started out at 14 at a retirement home and I was working as a server in their kitchen and little restaurant. I really loved that. I did that for about 3 years. So all throughout high school, all through COVID and everything. And then I've also done quite a bit of restaurant work at a couple different places. I've done kind of everything, a little bit of hosting, serving, bartending, a little bit of management in the restaurant world. And then now I'm finally at my first hotel job, which I'm very excited about.
Wow. So and I think we chatted a little before. A lot of people in in my company and in our industry start in the restaurant business. I think someone told me that probably more than a third of the people in our country have started their careers in restaurant business. So I think that's pretty interesting, but have gone on to do other things. That's a great career in and of itself. And I think you mentioned before that you're going to try the hotel thing, but you love the restaurant. Maybe you'll love it more, but you'll find out by trying. I think that's great.
Yes.
And I think it's good to keep your mind open. And I think you said that, I asked one of the questions before was, why did you decide to go to school rather than just go out and get the job? What was What was your reason for that?
Yeah, I just felt like school was definitely the right path for me. I wanted to have not only the career background that I do have, the experience, I wanted an educational background to kind of meld and build my portfolio. I wanted a mix of both, and I wanted to be able to learn like important things rather than learning by doing. I wanted an educational background. Felt like the right move for me.
And I think you mentioned before, you go to school to do one thing, you might end up doing another, and you just keep your mind open. I mean, I did. I started as a teacher, and I
Mhm.
get into the motel business, and now the hotel business. So I think keeping your mind open and trying new things is great. What
Yeah.
what did you have anything that somebody, your parents, kind of led you in a direction to this program, to education or this program, or guidance counselors or former bosses?
Not really. I mean, my mom was a huge push for SMCC because she loved the free college program, but as far as hospitality, I really brought myself there, and I think it was a lot of all of the positive feedback that I was getting from people, whether that was, like, just customers or, like, friends and family being like, "Wow, it feels like you're really excelling in this world, and it seems like you really love it and are happy in it," and I was like, "Well, maybe this is what I wanna do forever."
That's great. I think that loving what you do is important. You become better. You can go further if you love what you do. And then
Yes.
maybe that's why you've got the bubbly personality and the fun, because you love what you do and you're going to school
Yeah.
for what you want to do. I think that's awesome. Let's say, if you're going to give some advice to someone who's trying to decide to get into a program or this program, what kind of advice would you do? You've chosen SMCC and the free program. That's a great benefit. But what would you suggest that they think about and look at?
Definitely, if you think, like, as far as schools specifically, if you're gonna fit in the campus, do you think that that's gonna be the place for you? Do you like the programs? What I loved about SMCC is their program is internship based. So we have a lot of internships that go in with the major, and I really enjoyed that because I love working. So I wanted to be hands on. But what I think is really important is you just have to make the first decision, and then you can change your mind. You can pivot and go a ton of different places, and just because you made this first decision, it does not mean you're tied to that and that is the career you are shackled to for your life. You're allowed to grow and make decisions and be like, "Maybe this didn't work for me." I mean, I was originally gonna go to dentistry school, and thank God that I'm in the hospitality program because I'm not cut out to be a dentist, but I really love what I'm doing in the hospitality program at SMCC. So definitely that you can move around and change your mind.
That's great. I think that's great advice, no matter what the career. I think that's great.
Mhm.
One last thing for us, just another minute here is,
Yeah.
you're a Gen Z. I'm a boomer. So there's a big difference in what we look at life as. But, how can you help me? How can you help other young professionals, maybe that are X, Y, or millennials, become better leaders? What would you say? How can they help a Gen Z?
Yeah, I think that there's a lot of really hard workers in my generation, and I think there's a lot of people that are ready to take on bigger responsibilities, and they're ready to raise their hand and be a part of something, and I think being able to recognize and trust that responsibility and the hard work, I think that would be really important.
Well, I've gained a whole new trust after talking with you for the last 10 minutes. I,
I'm
I,
glad.
I'm very, very impressed by you and your decisions you've made. And I hope I can help you in some way in your career someday. And if I can give you guidance, if that's anything we can do. But thank you for being part of this. And thank you for kind of inspiring some of our listeners. And,
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
and so anybody else out there, that there's lots of good schools out there, and this is just one of the many. And thank you all for listening. And we'll bring someone from another school along. Thank you so much, Sophie.
Thank you.
Next up, we have Deco Hassan. Deco recently graduated from Husson University in Bangor, Maine, and is currently working in the company where she did her 2 internships. She's now in a supervisory role. Hi, Deco. How you doing?
Good. How are you?
Good. Thanks so much for joining us. This episode's really kind of cool. We're taking people, young professionals or people who are in school or just out of school, and fit the bill. You're perfect for that. And thank you for joining us.
Of course. Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah. So you're a student at Husson University, or you were
I
a student
was a student. Yes.
that you graduated from Husson. And what was your major?
Hospitality and tourism management.
And that you graduated, what, a year ago?
Yes. A year ago, 2023.
Okay. So you're out there. And so we've got a lot of listeners out there who maybe have, and you've had a lot of the guests that are on here that have been doing this for 20, 30 years. So I
Mhm.
think what we want to know is, why did you choose this industry? What led you to choose joining the hospitality business?
I really didn't like choose this industry. Like this was something that I enjoyed, so I was just like, might as well do it. My junior year of high school, I joined my culinary arts program. We had a technical school, a part of our high school, so I was like, might as well join. I have been cooking for my family since middle school, so I was like, I could always just learn more skills, more recipes, and how to be more better in the kitchen. So I did join my junior year, and I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed my head chef. He was great, very lively person. Like Dan Karen is one of the main reasons why I am in hospitality right now. He recommended that I worked as a line cook at a Italian restaurant down in Lewiston that I really enjoyed as well. I worked as a line cook for over 4 years. And then up until 2 years, I was like, okay, I'm going to go to college. I wasn't sure where to go to. I had a couple of majors that I had in mind, psychology, political science. But my head chef was like, hey, no, Deco, I think you enjoy hospitality. You're a great chef. But if you want to go to a different route of hospitality, you can go to Husson. They have a really great hospitality program where you can learn more management skills, where you don't have to be the chef or the line cook. You can be the person managing the chefs and the line cooks and be able to manage a hospitality property. And I just was like, yeah, I'll try it. Went to Husson my first year, and I really enjoyed the program. The professors and my advisor really showed me that hospitality was really a program that I enjoyed. And since then, I've still been in the industry, and I want to continue being in this industry.
Well, that's great. And it's neat that you had advisors that did that. And I think, and it's okay to seek out those things. Seek out people. That's so a young person, and advice we could give someone who's younger than you are, and before they get to college, is to talk to people and find out. And it's really neat that he did that. But then it was great that you ran into some people at Husson that also got it. And I know you mentioned a couple of your professors there that really kind of helped you with how to do this. So that's great. Tell us about your work experience, just briefly. I think you've had a lot of jobs. You mentioned, you basically talked about your first culinary. No, you didn't talk about your first culinary job. What you said, Da Vinci's, but did you? What else did you do?
I worked as a line cook. For the first year, I worked on salads, but then I grew my way to pizza, saute, appetizers. So anything in the Da Vinci's like restaurant, I could cook. Well, not now because I haven't been there in like a year or so. But if they wanted to put me back in the kitchen, I could get any of those stations done and efficiently. It might be a little like stressful because it was a very busy, very consistent restaurant. But I very much enjoyed working as a line cook. I would stock up my stations, get that ready for the day. I now know how to hand toss a pizza. Like that's built into my brain now. So it's great.
No, you did an internship while you were going to school too, right? That was it. So I love the fact that you've got a lot of experience leading into your career here.
Yes. I worked my summer internship. I worked at the Courtyard. I worked AM Bistro as well as front desk. I did breakfast foods as well as working front desk as checking people in, checking people out, working and helping with guest experience. And then my senior year internship, I worked more in the Courtyard as well as Town Place, front desk. Courtyard is more of a 1 or 2 night stay for business and travelers, as opposed to Town Place, where it is a long-term stay and where we see guests very frequently and we get to grow a relationship, as opposed to Courtyard, where it's like a couple of guests that consistently come back or frequently, but you are able to give them a unique experience, as well as Town Place. I also worked as PM Bistro, where I did bartending. So I was able to serve guests and get my tip certification. So it was a really great internship program that I was able to get from Courtyard and Town Place.
Well, it's interesting. You've basically done all the jobs. You're probably ready to be a general manager.
Yes, I've done as well. The only position they haven't let me do is maintenance. I keep asking, but it's fine.
Well, when it's time to plunge a toilet, they may call you and you may not want to.
Might actually. They've been asking for me to fix some P-tax, so I don't know.
Well, what's neat is that your terminology, what you're talking about, the extended stay, you've learned a lot through your education, as well as your experience as an intern. So you left, you graduated. One of the things I thought was kind of cool is you said there was a program that your professor suggested you do. Just a brief description of that, the networking thing.
Oh, yes. My professor, Lisa Sturgeon, she really recommends all of her business majors do a networking. And I started from my freshman year. I had her since my freshman year. And so she's been asking us to do networking events every semester. So like I would go to a different networking event and build relationships with different business professionals. My senior year, once I had graduated, Professor Sturgeon asked if I should join Bangor Fusion, which is a program where it's a Bangor recent graduates and early young adults that want to build relationships with other business professionals in Bangor that they don't know where to start. And so it was a great program for me to meet people that were from Hudson as well, from Maine, and people that do have small businesses right now that they have built. And it was a great place for me to build relationships because 10 years from now, if I thought that their property or their business was something that I want to venture into, I would be able to call them up and ask them if there was something available in their business, or if there's someone that in the area that is looking for someone that can apply their skills.
I love the fact that your instructors are talking about that. I've said that for years. I mean, I am where I am today because of my network. I mean, yes, I work hard, there's no question, but it's because of my networking, my ability to talk with people and form relationships. And I think the relationships you have today, like you said, it could be 10, 15 years down the road and they'll come back. And so I admire her for doing that as an instructor, as well as anybody at school that did that, but also you for taking advantage because not everybody does. So I commend you for that.
Yeah, Professor Spronis was the one that networked me to Jason, and that's how I was able to get my job at the Courtyard. And he was able to connect me to Jason and Kevin at our business fair, and from there, I was able to build the relationship with both of them, and now I am able to be a supervisor at the town place.
Well, I've always told people, and I've told you this too, and I think you were at one of the things I spoke at is that I am available for networking. If you have questions, you want to talk, I'm willing to do it. I've been around for a long time and I want to give back. So, but you remember that too. You want to be able to give back to young students. That's kind of what you're doing today for someone joining our industry. We get time for maybe one more thing. We talked a little bit about, I'm a boomer, so I've been around, and this podcast in this episode really is earmarked toward the younger demographics and maybe the Gen Zs. You're a Gen Z, right?
Yes, I'm Gen Z.
So tell me, okay, here's your opportunity. You can tell a boomer, or you can tell an X, or you can tell a millennial. Tell us, how should we work with a student, with a person that's a Z? You're a Gen Z. How should we treat you? How do we respond to you and communicate with you?
I would say just being able to communicate openly. I am able to do that with my managers. I can just talk to them and let them ask them any questions, and they're able to respond back and give me any answers that I need in a very educational way. I don't want to be patronized, if that makes sense. I would rather you help me out and show me where I need to be excelling and where I need to progress and what places that I need to fix, as opposed to telling me like, oh, like you should be able to get that done, or like this is something you should have learned in school. No, like if this is something that I need to be able to do for my job, I want you to guide me in a way where we can both collaborate together and find a solution together.
So now you've helped the boomer understand. Yes. Thank you so much. I hope I do some of that stuff, and I hope that everybody listens to the people. So I think this is great. So I think I am excited that you joined me.
Yeah, thank you.
And I think that we're so fortunate to have young professionals entering the workforce that are like you, that are full of energy. And for you listeners, she said she was nervous, but she did not come across nervous on this call.
So nervous. It's so bad.
Not at all. You came across great. And I can see her. She doesn't look nervous. When she starts talking with the passion you have for this industry, it's great. So thank you, Deco, for being here and being part of this podcast and for offering advice to young people and to old people like me.
Oh, thank you for inviting me. I really appreciate it.
All right. So we hope our subscribers they'll hope they continue to subscribe and listen to us. So thank you so much.
Of course. Thank you so much. This is great. I don't know. I was very nervous about it, but I think it was a lot better than I expected.
And our final guest is Amanda Lois. She grew up around the hospitality business. Rather than focusing on hospitality business, she's focusing on the business of hospitality, with a minor in commercial development at Boston University. Well, Amanda, thank you for joining us on the podcast today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Well, it's great. So you are a student at Boston University in Boston, and I'm sure you're a subscriber to the podcast.
Obviously.
But this episode is going to be a little different than the other ones we've done. And I hope you just kind of you're a different perspective for our listeners to hear. And I really appreciate you being here with sharing your perspective, where you are in life, in your career, as well as your education. So thanks again for being here. So, you don't have the kinds of years of experience that some of the people we've had. I mean, I've got 40 years, someone else has got 20, and some others have 10, but you do have experiences in getting into this business. So what kind of things inspired you to get into the business? Was it work? What kind of thing inspired you to get into this industry?
Yeah, so my family's actually in the hospitality industry, and I think most people assume that that's what got me into it, kind of just seeing them in their jobs. But really it was how my parents kind of framed my upbringing. Our house, often joke, operates just like a hotel. I think in my lifetime we've had over 30 people come and live with us at different times. It's a revolving door. There are always people. You meet many new people from many different backgrounds just within my own family. So I think that's what really drew me to the industry, is because it was such an easy transition from the way I had always lived in my life to the hospitality industry, which is all about, for me, like creating that sense of family, home away from home feeling. So that was kind of why I decided to go in.
Well, that's really interesting. It was nice that your parents inspired you to action rather than do this, do as I say, not as I do, but they do it. And that's a neat thing. So you made the transition, and I know you kind of searched through a lot of different schools and settled on working. You tried UNH and then went to BU. What parts of the program, or what did you like about, and why did you choose the schools that you did?
Yeah, so BU, I actually met with the dean of BU when I was a senior in high school. And we kind of jumped on a call that was supposed to be about 15 minutes long. And we ended up talking for close to an hour. And I realized like that's exactly where I wanted to be. So I kind of was like, maybe I'll go to UNH for a year and test it out, because I wasn't really sure if I was ready to be in the city. But ultimately, I made the transition back to BU, and I'm super happy that I'm here now.
Well, I think, in earlier conversations we've had, you talked about, being flexible and being willing to make change when you're in certain points of your life. And I think that's a great thing. You started it, you made a tradition, and you were resilient. You weren't going to say, I'm throwing a towel, I'm giving up. You just said, I'm going to change. The winds are going to go in a little different directions. And BU is a great program. So congratulations. And thanks for sharing that. So now you have worked in the industry, I think. Now, again, I've got 42 years. You're not there, but I think, for someone who's early 20s, you've probably got some pretty good experience.
Yeah, I think I've worked in the industry for almost 7 years now, 4 different hotels, and now in a food truck business, so F&B. I've worked in almost every area in operations in a hotel, from housekeeping, front desk, a little bit of food and beverage in like a breakfast buffet type setting. I've done a little bit of engineering too, which people always laugh at, but I wanted to learn. Why not? So I trained under one of the engineers when I was working at a hotel in Salem, which I really enjoyed as well. Now I'm working for a food truck company, which I really like because I hadn't had a ton of experience in F&B before that. So I'm a manager on a food truck. I do a majority of the cooking, and I manage a staff of about 10 people as well.
Well, that's great. And I go back and I'm trying to do the math here. I think you said you're 21 and you've had 7 years of experience, and that you barely were legal. But I do know your father, and I guarantee that he would have let you work at 7 if they made it legally okay, but not.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
And I'm sure he tells stories of how he was 12 years old or 6 years old and he was working in a factory or something. I'm sure he told.
Oh yeah, he was 2 years old and pulling trucks or something.
So you've worked in the industry, and I like the idea that you've done all different areas, and I think that gives you the diversity. And I think so with the BU, do you want to run hotels, or do you want to? What I think you talked about a different direction.
So I went into BU. I knew I was going to be a hospitality major, but I wasn't quite sure where I wanted to be within the industry. I had enjoyed operations and had pretty significant operations experience before going to BU. And also just through my personal life, a pretty good exposure to events. And I really enjoyed events and event planning. I was pretty detail oriented. So I originally thought that was going to be my concentration at Boston University. And then I started taking a few finance classes, and I was super nervous about them because I just didn't think that was something that I excelled at. But I actually did pretty well in them. And kind of going into that, I had a couple professors kind of take me under their wing who were pretty involved in real estate development. And once I realized that I had the ability to be good at finance, I decided that real estate development was really something that interested me much more than event planning. I just feel like there are so many opportunities within it and so many ways that it can relate to other industries and not just hospitality. So ultimately, that's what I'm in now. My full major is a Bachelor of Science in Hospitality with a concentration in real estate development.
Well, you can still use that event training. So every time you open a new hotel, you have to have events. So you could do that on the side for fun.
Exactly.
That's good. So why did you decide to go to school rather than just jump in to the?
Yeah, that was a big decision for me. I am not a huge school person. I do pretty well in school, but I really prefer to learn more hands-on. It was really my father who wanted me to go to school. He never had the opportunity to graduate college, so it was something that was really important to him. And my parents were really pushing me to go to college. And ultimately, I'm really glad that I decided to, because I never would have picked real estate as my direction and really fallen in love with real estate if I hadn't gone to college. But I also think it's super valuable that I've continued working over the summers in operations, because kind of the coupling of the two of them is obviously very great for my future, knowing what goes into a hotel, especially when you're about to build one.
Well, I think that's a great point. I mean, my role now is a little less operations, but because I know that you've got to leave. You got to have closets in a hotel. Every
Exactly.
every construction guy takes them out or puts something in them, or space for this and space for that. So I think it's a good marrying of the two things, and I think that was great. I don't know if I prepped you for this one, but what any insightful stories about the industry that either came from your parents or guidance counselor or former? Why did did they guide you other than guiding you into the hospital? Yep, going to college. But was there anything that kind of inspired you?
I think really all comes from my father. He really has instilled a message in my siblings and I that we were put on this earth to help others, no matter what way that is, which I think is why all my siblings and I have kind of picked an industry that is about helping others and doing everything we can to provide for others. That's kind of my personal mission. That's my dad's personal mission. And I really love that our whole family has kind of come together around that. Just looking at the amount of people that my father has helped over the years, with them usually not even knowing that he's helping them, is unbelievable. I was actually just writing an essay about it and I started to tear up because he's truly such an amazing person. So I guess really, if I could be anything like him when I'm older, that would be the ultimate dream.
That's great. And I'm sure you will be. So we'll kind of end it with, I'm an old guy, I'm a boomer, and you're a Gen Z. Help me or help other industry people out there, whether they could be X, Y, or millennials or boomers. How can they work with a Gen Z? How can they?
Yeah, I think
How can you help us work with Gen Zs?
I think a lot of people have misconceptions that Gen Z doesn't want to work as hard, which I understand, just because it's the time of the life we're in right now. We're in college, we're having fun, we're experiencing new things. So our focus may not completely be working hard and career-wise yet. But in speaking with a lot of my peers, especially here at BU, we really do all have a really strong passion for what we're doing, whether it be hospitality, business, in the medical field, in the law field. I really haven't met many people who aren't really passionate about what they want to do and really want to work hard. So I think as someone who has more experience in whatever industry it is, really just supporting us with our goals and realizing that this is a pretty big transition time in our life and we may not get it right the first time, but we really are willing to work hard and hopefully do really well in whatever career we choose.
Well, I'm sure your father instilled hard work in your family too, and you. So I'm sure that'll come through. So that's a no-brainer for you. Well, man, our time's run out, but I want to really thank you for being here and being part of this. It's the first time we've tried something like this as an episode, and I couldn't be happier. You've been great, and thank you so much for being part of it.
Thanks so much for having me, Sean.
Thank you for joining us for another episode of Bed and Butter, the hospitality podcast produced in partnership with Southern Maine Community College. Make sure you're subscribed to the podcast so that you don't miss any episodes, and have a butterful day.